या गुरुदेव की जय, मन महाप्रभु की जय, श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल. So, pranam to all of you. Welcome, good morning. And it is my pleasure to join you again in our series of lectures about Srimad-Bhagavatam, the song of the Bumblebee. And today we are continuing. Today we are in our fourth meeting, fourth introductory lecture, getting closer to the official Bhramara-gita. Today we will be studying the remaining verses from chapter 46 of the 10th canto of the Bhagavad. In our previous lecture we were studying the first 7 verses, and now we will do the summary of them. And today we will finish with chapter 46 of this 10th canto. So next class we will have one last introductory class, a 5th one, seeing the first 11 verses of the 47th chapter, and then starting from verse 12 of the 47th chapter of 10th canto, we will have the Bhramara Gītā per se. So let's go to some brief recap of what we were studying in our 2 weeks ago, since last Monday we didn't have class because of Baladev Rasa Yatra. So in that third introductory meeting, we were studying verses 1 to 7 from chapter 46, 10th canto of Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam. This chapter called Uddhav visits Vrindavan. So we mentioned how Krishna and Balaram at this point, being in Mathura, they really want to go to Vraj. But they conclude the best thing we can do is to send a messenger, a dutta, messenger. So Uddhav, for many reasons, as we share, was the ideal person for such a mission. He was Shastrabit, knower of all scripture. He was direct disciple of Brihaspati, very learned personality. He was a great devotee. His main mood was Sakya, mixed with Dasya mixed with Sakya. He was a personal minister, advisor of Sri Hari, there in Mathura, eventually in Dwarka. He was even similar to Krishna in physical form. He was wearing Krishna's own remnants, but something was missing for Uddhav as well. Some PhD was waiting for him in Braj Prem, PhD experience, if you will. So for many reasons concerning what Uddhav could give to the Brajavasis, but what could the Brajavasis give to Uddhav, Krishna concluded Uddhav is the best person. So at this point in this scene, Krishna is looking on the rooftop in Mathura towards Vrindavan, and Uddhav appears and taking his hand, crying, both of them. But the point is that Krishna knows I cannot fully open my heart, tear apart my chest, and pour that onto Uddhav's heart because he has no experience of Brajavav yet. So I will send him to Braj. So he acquired Bhakti Samskars, Braja Bhakti Samskars, in such a way that when he returns, after experiencing conversion, if you will, in Braj, transformed, he returns transformed, and I will be able to reveal my mind in a much better way. So in this way, Krishna asked Uddhav, please go to Braj and send a message to the Brajavasis there. They are only surviving with the hope that I will return. That was my promise to them. And that's their life breath, if you will. So we mostly analyzed 4 verses, although we went through the first 7 ones, 4 main verses which have to do with what the Bhagavatam says about Krishna telling Uddhav regarding the Sandesh, Uddhav Sandesh, which means the message sent by Uddhav. So first he will say, Achoda Babrajam Sumya, and so on. So he's asking him, go to Braj and relieve my parents, but especially relieve my gopis, suffering separation from me. Krishna himself will send a handwritten message for the gopis especially. So my parents need special support, but especially the gopis. And of course, we will add to that, and Krishna as well, reciprocation. So as much as the Brajavasis need to be saved, Krishna needs to be saved as well. So we also, in the context of this, we also shared some verses from Uddhav Sandesh, which is a composition by Srila Rupa Goswami, in which in further detail he describes the implications and content of all that Krishna asked Uddhav to convey to the Brajavasis. And I won't repeat that, of course, in detail now. You can go back to the lecture. But there is a further description of the condition in separation in Braj, and how Krishna is not only sending, of course, a message to Nanda and Jashoda through Uddhav to the gopis, but to each Brajavasi, to every single entity and species there in the Dham. And he's confirming through those messages the spurtis that persons like Jashoda, the gopis, are having with Krishna, meeting him, finding that Krishna ate what Jashoda offered, and Krishna is confirming, I was there, I tasted that, it was like this, it was like that. But especially, of course, in this Uddhav Sandesh, Rupa Goswami will present Krishna asking Uddhav, approach Radha in a most special way. Her condition is very delicate because her prem is the topmost. So that implies topmost joy in union, topmost suffering and separation, which is divine suffering, as we know. Both union and separation have to do with love. So if there is love, we are just speaking about different presentations of it. It's not something becoming or unbecoming as we may think in this world regarding pleasure and pain, which both are unbecoming. So eventually in this letter, Krishna will tell to them, indeed, you will be the most benefited one in this journey. Of course, you will try to help the Brajavasis, but you will have this insight at the end of your experience. I have received the greatest blessing by having the darshan of this Brajabhav, Brajaprem. So this way, Krishna instructs, after conveying the message, you stay there for a while. And as we will see, that will do as such, he will stay almost like a year there. So in this way, Krishna writes his letter for Brajavas, for gopis in particular, and Uddhav goes to Raj, mounted on a chariot, while Krishna remains looking how the chariot is disappearing in the horizon and the dust remains, and Krishna crying, looking in the direction of Braj till some person brings him back to his headquarters in Mathura. If not, he will remain fixed, crying in that direction. So that's a brief recap of what we studied 2 weeks ago in our last third introductory class. So today again, we continue with our fourth introductory lecture. We will finish chapter 46. We will see today verses 8 till 49, of course, not one by one, so don't be scared, but we'll make some summary of that. And today, mostly we will concentrate on Uddhava's arrival to Braj and his exchange of the very first day of his arrival, or I will say his very first night, not even a whole day, but what happened, what transpired when he arrived to Braj on the evening along that night. And that will have to do mostly today with Nanda and Jashoda. And that's the very first interview, if you will, he will have in Braj. And that's the first Brajabhav experience he will be having. Apart from the trailer, of course, that Krishna was given to Uddhav by sharing the message and glorifying the love of the Brajavas. So Uddhav arrives to Braj in the afternoon, almost evening, what the time of the day called Godhuli. As you may know, Dhuli means dust and Go means cows in this case. So Godhuli refers to the moment of the day where the cows are walking with their hooves and making dust race in the sky when Krishna is returning from the pasture field. So that's a very clear sign that Krishna is returning. So the whole of Braj is dying in separation on a daily basis, looking at the horizon, waiting for that sign to come. Oh, dust is coming, it means Krishna is coming. So they call this moment of the day Godhuli. So there was so much dust, which also is a personality and wants to serve Krishna by bathing him with this sacred element, doing abhishek with food dust from Braj. So there was so much dust that when Uddhav arrived to Braj in the chariot, practically nobody noticed him because everyone was, as we all see, in particular mood as well, apart from the dust. So the Bhagavatam describes very beautifully and in detail the whole scene, the scenario that Uddhav was able to see. The sound of the cows, the sound of the bulls, the cows and the bulls wanting to get together, associate the two bulls quarreling with each other because of wanting to associate with a particular cow, the churning of butter, different kirtan performed by the Brajavasis in a spontaneous way while churning butter. And this is very typical even nowadays. If you go to Braj, you see the cowherds there, they're still churning butter or whatever. And meanwhile they're doing that, they are engaging kirtan, constantly singing lila, guna lila, kirtan, and so on. That's a great contribution of early Braj to the world. In daily manual work, they include kirtan. So we should do as well if we want to enter day someday. So, and Uddhav has this scenario. He was with this idea. They are experiencing terrible separation. Everyone is suffering. But he finds a different situation here. He finds all the houses are effulgent. Everyone is happy. Everyone is flourishing. Everything is flourishing. So what's going on? You yourself may ask about that. No, I mean, everyone should be dying in separation. So what happened here? So it is said that all this happened because Krishna was inspired to show a particular darshan to Uddhav, inspired by his Ichcha Shakti, which means desire potency, to say that Krishna thought, okay, let Uddhav see, to begin with, the splendor of my Braj, the splendor of my Vrindavan. And according to his desire, Yogamaya covered the particular manifestation of Braj, which was merged in grief because of separation. And instead, Yogamaya showed Uddhav a typical evening in Braj in which Krishna was present, which is charming with all these positive emotions of joy, playfulness, eagerness, enthusiasm. So Uddhav had this first darshan. As we will see, we'll have another darshan after this, but he entered in touch with this particular prakash or portal or window of permanent union in Braj, which is always going on. And eventually he will see the viraha prakash, the separation window. Sometimes acharyas mention that the Brajavasis, due to Krishna's promise that I will return, and they had this expectation, he may come at any moment. We don't know. He may come tomorrow, in 5 minutes, who knows where. So they were confident on his promise, and that's why they were alive. So they thought, therefore, it is our dharma to maintain everything in Braj in the same position as it was seen by Krishna when he left for Mathura. Everything in the exact same moment. So this is what Uddhava saw when he arrived to Braj. Everything is like if Krishna never left, has never left. And that's the Nitya Vihar, or like the permanent pastimes that is being done on the aprakat, sometimes called aprakat Braj or aprakat Prakash, the invisible window. The journal is not the one sees it. It's the prakat Prakash and the aprakat Prakash. The visible and invisible window, manifest and immanifest. So in one, overtly it seems they're suffering separation, but in the other one, implicitly they are joining simultaneously in another expression, constant union. So again, this may not fit between our ears, so we need to gradually go deep and deep in our practice to access all these mysteries. So some Brajavasis at this point saw Uddhav, a few ones, not all of them again. So the few ones who saw Uddhav were wondering, he seems like Krishna, but he's not Krishna. Because he's exactly like Krishna, physically speaking, he's wearing his clothes, but they immediately thought, but why do we do not feel what we feel when we see Krishna? So they had this kind of intuitive perception. I mean, they just move according to what they are feeling. So we don't feel he's Krishna, so it cannot be Krishna, even though it's exactly like Krishna. That's the idea. So he seems to have a different bhav, a different attitude, something. It's all about bhav in Braj. That's the filter. According to bhav, everything is properly fitting or not. So we will tell Nanda and Jasoda about this. Let's go to the king and the queen and notify about the news. So immediately after this first impression that Uddhav had of this first window of Braj, Yogamaya closes the curtain, if you will, and Uddhav has darshan of another Braj, another Vrindavan, when Krishna is not there, in time and space of this world, if you will. So suddenly he's in another world, if you will. And all the bumblebees are sad, are not happy, are not drinking the pollen for the flowers, are crying on the floor, not flying even. or the peacocks are not able to properly express themselves, dance their dance love with the raised feathers. They're looking to the floor. Cows are not giving milk, are not pouring affection. And the whole Braja forest is basically a forest fire burned by Viraha Agni, the fire of divine separation. On one side, fire, and on the other side, there are so many ponds in Braj that are flooding the area because of the tears of the gopis. So all these different things are being now seen by Uddhav. So you can imagine how Uddhav is starting to feel in the very first few minutes in Braj. Already he's considerably overwhelmed, bewildered, if you will, short-circuited. So this is Uddhav Sandesh. The message of Uddhav, but as we say, the PhD of Uddhav, short circuit of Uddhav as well. Sometimes the example is given regarding also to understand why he saw these two manifestations regarding separation, union. The example of gold is given. Sometimes if you put gold in fire, you will do that in order to reveal its ultimacy, its ultimate purity, its real form. You need the fire. So in this way, in one of these manifestations, Prakashas, Krishna and his associates showed themselves in separation, in the fire of separation that makes the gold become more and more valuable, the gold, the prem in their hearts, in the gold of their love, if you will. And through that, again, the glory of their love shines more and more to Uddhav and to all of that, to all of us, and their own prem increases more and more in that particular fire. So we should understand, we should develop a sense for that. We should develop some separate tongue to relish and to understand this type of things and logic according to love, mystery and paradox, how this is working, which is the role of separation, which is the role of this fire, which helps to refine, to distill this love even further. And for us, it makes that the more apparent. So through that, as we will see, the glory of the Brajavasis love will be clearly established in the whole world through someone like Uddhav, who is again a Shastravit, and we'll sing about their glories eventually. So Uddhav is receiving these first samskars like this. And so on one side, this is this darshan he's receiving. On the other side, Krishna is showing to Uddhav with the intention of establishing the prem of the gopis, the prem of the gopas is permanent, is without change, and therefore I reciprocate to that permanently. That means we are constantly united. So Krishna is showing the second manifestation to show that as well. Me and my devotees, we are in a mood of direct association forever. So it's pretty interesting how these two windows are complementing each other and working each other simultaneously. Achintya Veda Ved. So Uddhav, in this way, Nanda and Jasoda are notified about Uddhav's arrival, even though the Brajavasis did not know who he was, but Nanda and Jasoda know who Uddhav is. Nanda went to Mathura, get to meet Uddhav and so on. So the point is, Uddhav enters into Nandishwar, into Nanda's palace, and he continues to contemplate now the Vrindavan in separation, that particular window. So Nanda Maharaj receives Uddhav, treats him like a god in the sense of being a proper, Uddhav being the guest, Nanda receiving a hosting properly, Atiti Deva Bhavan, it is said in the Veda. And an expected guest is to be treated as God himself. So what to speak if he's a messenger of Krishna, a friend, a servant. So Nanda worships him, receives him, feeds him with the best possible food. The Bhagavatam said, Param Anena, very high refined food. But Nanda himself, it is said, he was not able to eat a single grain of rice because he was so much immersed in separation, so much devoured, if you will, by this fire. It is said that from the day that Krishna departed from Mathura, all the homes of the Brajavasis were left unswept, dirty, in this particular manifestation, remember, filled with leaves and grass and dust and spider webs, basically. Nobody concerning about anything. And the Brajavasis sometimes say they were kept alive because some neighboring people from neighboring villages will bring in them milk and yogurt and buttermilk and try to make them eat them by force, basically, because if not, they were just consuming in that particular file and lamenting, alas, alas, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Kaha Krishna? So Uddhava is contemplating all these, and he meets Nanda. So Nanda inquired from Uddhava as a proper host, how is everything in Mathura? So he starts the conversation in the most formal way. I mean, he's only interested about knowing how is Krishna, when he will return, as we'll see. That's his only question. How is Krishna, when will he return? But somehow or other, he had some fear. If I ask about Krishna right from the very first moment, my throat may be choked up, tears will come to my eyes. I won't be able to say anything else. There won't be any conversation whatsoever. So Nanda first asked, how is Mathura? How is he asked about Vasudeva's welfare in a more formal way, but that lasts for only a moment. He's not able to contain himself, and almost immediately he asked to the how is Krishna? And when this word Krishna and the whole sentence how is Krishna came out of his mouth, he was not able to contain himself. His heart like broke apart, and he started to cry profusely, calling Krishna, where is Krishna, when he will return, and lamenting himself, I'm such a bad father, I was not able to serve him properly, when he will come back, well, he will. So he starts with all these type of questions towards Uddhava. Does Krishna remember us? Does he remember his mother? Does he remember his friends, his well-wishers? Does he remember the cowherds, the village of Braj? He's the master of this village. Of course, this idea of master has nothing to do with any type of Aishwarya whatsoever. Does he remember the cows, Vrindavan forest, Govardhan hill? So this way, immediately, Nanda Maharaj gets absorbed in Braj Mandal Parikram, if you will, asking about Krishna connection to everything in Braj. And he himself becoming more further and further absorbed. Will he come to us even once to see his family, his own, those who are his own, his jana, sajjana? At least if he comes once, we may be able to glance at him one more time. His beautiful face, his beautiful eyes, his beautiful nose, smile. So in this way, Nanda starts to get absorbed in all different bodily limbs of Krishna. And so he goes through this journey of Nam, Rupa, Guna, Lila. First he says, when will Krishna come? He said Krishna, Nam, invoke him now, and then immediately Rupa. When we'll see his form, his beautiful eyes and face, and then he will go to Guna, his qualities, and then he will go to Lila. So he is showing the proper sequence how from Nam there's a whole volcanic explosion that will take us in Parikram and all the other different qualities. But all this happens naturally in the figure of Nanda and all the Brajavasis. I mean, they do not have a separate notion apart from that. So with this, Nanda even implies, let's forget even about Krishna's coming back here and remain here permanently. I beg only to see him one more time. So our life are about to end now. So at least may we see Krishna just once and then die happily, peacefully, with his face, in Bhishma-like way. We are on the bed of arrows, being pierced by the pain of separation. At least see his beautiful lotus face once and we can live. So at this point, Uddhava is totally out of his mind. He's totally shocked. I mean, he has never seen something like that. It's totally new for him, unknown for him. Even though Krishna tried to tell him something about that, but you have to have the experiences, Anubhav, you have to be there. So, and remember, Uddhava received this mission, you have to console them. You have to give support to them. So he was wondering how to do this, where to begin, what's going on. I don't know. First, in order to provide the medicine, first you have to have it diagnosed and know what's going on. But Uddhava was not even aware of what's going on in the hearts of the Brajavas. So what's the medicine? Which are the words I have to present? So he didn't know what to tell. I mean, at least he started to have, of course, some insight gradually by the grace and the association of the Brajavas and, of course, the mercy of Krishna and Uddhav's own adhikar, he starts to grasp gradually more and more how to deal with these Brajavasis. So he starts to realize, to begin with, I cannot tell Nanda, stop crying, because the essence of, for Krishna, because the essence of all Dharma is to cry for Krishna, Prem Dharma, crying Dharma. But also I cannot tell him continue crying, because Krishna's order is try to pacify them. So this short circuit is beginning more and more in Uddhav's here. So today we will try to go deep into the interaction between Uddhav and Nanda, mostly. We just saw that times, but mostly Nanda and Uddhav. So at this point, again, Nanda is totally absorbed in Krishna, Lila Smaranam, Guna Smaranam, and so on. So Nanda at this point starts to remember how all the Brajavasis were saved on so many occasions by Krishna. And he starts to mention all these different situations, different Asuras and Giriraj Govardhan, rice lifting Govardhan and Kaliya Lake and the forest fire. But with all this also implying, but why he's not saving us now? We are in another forest fire. He saved us from two forest fires. But this one, this Viraha Agni, this is unknown. Why he's not saving us from here? So Uddhav starts to share his first suggestion. He won't be successful, but at least he tries very sincerely, as we'll see. He will really try to do his service in the best possible way, to serve his master, Hari, and to serve the Brajavasis as well. So he suggests to Nanda, well, I think you are staying too much inside your house, too much for quarantine now. Go out, basically. So you are remembering Krishna too much. You do not go out your house, your room even. So give up dwelling on him that much, and you may go outside for a walk, wander along the beautiful landscape of Braj, or along the shores of the Jamuna, tending your cows, engaging in some work, and so your mind goes somewhere else, something like this. A more practical advice. Uddhav didn't start it with the most philosophical thing. So it is said that actually this idea came in the mind of Uddhav. Some acharyas mentioned he did not even present that explicitly, but whatever the case, to say that Nanda immediately replies to that, explaining how such an advice will be totally practical or unfavorable, because what's the point? If I go out of my house, I start seeing Vrindavan. I will start seeing Jamuna River, Vrindavan Forest, and all of different places where Krishna performed pastimes. Every single spot where I will put my eyes, it will be a Lila Stali. It will be a place where Krishna did something there. So that will act as an udipana. Immediately that will activate our remembrance from Krishna. Our mind will become absorbing Krishna even more. So that's what happens with Nanda goes out. If he goes out, he only sees not only the Lila Stalis, interestingly, but even if you may say, well, at that point, there's not particular spot, he will say, but there are the footprints of Krishna. The footprints of Krishna remain there in Braj. They are preserved by the Brajavasis as a very valuable deity, if you will. All of his footprints, somehow or other, they remain there. And so that will create, you can imagine what will create, how that will turn Nanda Maharaj's Vatsalya heart. And also all this speaking about the power of dhambas, of residence in the dham. Ideally it's showing if you reside in the dham, the idea of that is you will be surrounded by all these udipanas that will nourish your bhakti. Of course, how this functions in connection to the Nitya Siddhas in Braj in this particular prakasha separation, that's another thing. But still speaking about that to us. So with this, Nanda Maharaj is implying we remember when we go out Krishna more and more, and the pain of separation is increasing. So it's interestingly, the Brajavasis are rejecting Smaran, Lila Smaran, and they try to absorb themselves in material activities, quote unquote material, to stop suffering, but they cannot do that. So we as sadhakas have to get more and more absorbed, but they're in their absorption seem to be rejecting those things that are actually totally, and they cannot do, of course, that's in nature. They cannot think about something else. They are tadatmya. Tadatmya means one with, the whole self is one with Krishna. Not, of course, in a monistic way, but one in purpose. So in this way, Nanda continues totally absorbed in Lila Shmaran, remembering all different pastimes Krishna and Balaram performing Braj, killing this demon, that demon. And at one point, Nanda's, in the context of that, of so many extraordinary exploits they engaged in, he will suggest, well, Krishna and Balaram must be some kind of extraordinary beings, like devas or something uncommon to be able to do what they did. And it's not normal. A 7-year-old child lifting a hill with the little finger and so on. So when he says that, in one point he becomes like captured by anxiety and stops speaking. He fell silent for a moment, overcome by the strength of love. And as we know, even when Nanda Maharaj will say such a thing, even if Nanda Maharaj is appreciating Krishna's Aishwarya, Krishna's powers, he did such a great thing. His attachment, his parental attachment, his Vatsalya Bhav is such that his intimacy is never interrupted, even by considering Krishna may be someone extraordinary. Krishna did some Aishwaric feats. The Aishwarya is not affecting the Brajavasis. That's the uniqueness of their standard of love. Or we could say Aishwarya is affecting the Brajavasis in the way of not diluting their Madhurya or their intimacy, but upgrading it. That's the interesting thing. If someone goes to Yashoda and say Krishna is God, first of all, she won't believe that and will reject the ideas. We will see today. But even if she were to accept that for a moment, sometimes for a moment, they may believe that, let's say, but that will only help to increase their Vatsalya. Oh, my son is God. My son is so incredible. I have such a wonderful son. He's so beautiful. So they will concentrate only on the idea, my son, my son, my son, not on God. God will be a secondary of more than secondary feature to their son. So that's a unique type of psychological makeup we find there in Braj. And Uddhav is realizing all this. Uddhav has Aishwarya for Krishna. He knows Krishna is God. That's present in him. He's aware of that. So he's now seeing this unique, again, expression of Prem. So Jashoda was at one part of the room there, here and there. So she was hearing the descriptions of Nanda Baba, who was absorbed in, again, Lila Katha. And she appeared on this scene, pouring torrents of tears and milk flowing from her breast out of love. Rupa Goswami said this is a ninth Sattvic Bhav, milk pouring from the breast in the context of Vatsalya. So it is said that she was almost like drowning in whirlpools of unsteadiness. And that's why she was not able to appear till now and offer proper reception to Uddhav as a host, any hospitality, because she was drowning somewhere else, if you will. She even, sometimes it is said, she did not even see Uddhav because of so many tears coming in front of her eyes, cataracts. So she was even in a worse state than Nanda. We know that Yashoda's Vatsalya is generally depicted as the highest. And Jiva Goswami Gopal Champu says that when Uddhav saw the condition of Yashoda Maya, he thought, because of so much profuse crying, profuse milk flowing, he thought she will become a river. Poetically, Jiva Goswami describes like that. That was Uddhav's impression. That lady will become a river. So much liquid flowing through her. So at this point, Yashoda starts to speak, but as a totally crazy lady, if you will, on mad, in total divine madness. And she tells both Nanda and Uddhav to shut up, stop speaking, because Krishna, restless Krishna, finally he went to sleep. So you shouldn't do any more noise and speaking in such loud voice. Do not wake him up. It's so difficult for me to put him to sleep. I have to tell so many tales about different Ramayana. And when I tell Ramayana, Krishna will say, that's me. And I will have to, to put him to sleep and so on. So the point is, Krishna is manifesting over and over again in front of the eyes of Yashoda, the love-filled eyes, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. Krishna is there, sported, but Uddhav cannot see that. Again, he was still not able to understand so much what's going on. So by hearing both Nanda and Yashoda speaking like this, Uddhav started to consider, oh my gosh, what advice can I give them? Again, where should I begin? Should I begin? I mean, if they were suffering in separation from an ordinary child, mundane son, I could enlighten them by giving a typical Upanishadic discourse, wisdom. You are immersed. Brahma-gyan, difference between body and soul. You are immersed in the illusion of family, mundane attachment, false attachment to wife and sons, cause of trouble, the hapatya kalitradisu, admasanyesu satsapi, fallible soldiers, according to the Bhagavat. Give up that attachment and attach yourself to the Lord. But Buddha realized, but they are attached to the Lord, but in a unique way that I don't understand. How can I say to Nanda and Jasoda, give out, attach yourself to the Lord and not to your son? They are attached to the Lord as their son. So that combination is unique. I never saw that. Before that, I thought you should not be attached to your son, you should be attached to the Lord. But now here I find these people getting attached to the Lord as their son. Do you understand the uniqueness of Rajabhav? So he starts to land on the reality of Raj and compare notes. Oh, Nanda and Jashoda are not like Vasudeva and Devaki. When they see Krishna's Aishvarya, I know Vasudeva and Devaki, they have love for Krishna's parents, but also they are aware of Krishna's Aishvarya. When Krishna appears, when he was born and so on, his Vatsalya was weakened. And he entered into prayer to that. But in this case, when I see Nanda and Jasoda, when they become aware of Krishna's majesty, their Vatsalya increases instead of being weakened. And they start to think in terms, even the parents of an ordinary son may die out of misery if they can no longer see him playing in their house. But our good fortune, the Lord himself, they may say even for a moment, God himself as our son playing in our house, and now we are lamenting so bitterly. We can't cuddle Krishna for even a moment any longer and crying and crying. So again, this is a very unique perspective. Buddha was trying to grasp all this. So he was thinking, what to do, which is a strategy, preaching strategy. He was thinking about some outreach technique here. So he concluded, well, I will try my best. Uddhava he's really trying his best to properly serve every particular side. So there's no other means. I will try to weaken their prem by discoursing on spiritual knowledge. I will speak about Aishvarya, Krishna being God, and so on. I will tell to them that Krishna is the Paramatma, and as Paramatma, he's indifferent to everything. Samoham Sarvabhutasu, he's formless. Also, he's Brahman, the impersonal Brahman. So being as such, he has no birth, no father, no mother, no body even, no material body, no material activities. Trying to get these people detaching from their extraordinary prem. He's realizing these are not ordinary people. So to realize all this, I will emphasize you have to meditate on the soul, but I would have also thought, according to the commentaries of the Charas, if Nanda and Jashoda's unlimited, unfathomable prem for Krishna not only remains unchecked after I tell this, but rather increases after hearing my discourse of spiritual wisdom, then a whole new purpose will be here, and that's the following. I will return to Mathura and simply glorify their incomparable prem again and again in the grand assembly of Krishna, Vasudeva. So here at this point, Uddhava is having a glimpse of what's the real purpose of his visit to Braj. He's having a glimpse. I won't be able to fully console them, but actually I will receive such a lesson from them that the real purpose of this visit is having me spreading the glory of their love wherever I may go. So, but he will insist. He will do his best trying to follow Krishna's advice, try to pacify them. So he will try, but if that doesn't work, he already has a second plan, a second conclusion. So having decided in this way, would have meditated on his Prabhu, Krishna, and started to speak about Krishna as a super soul, Paramatma again, equal to all, impartial, no father, no mother, no work to perform, no birth. He's the all in all, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, Uddhava, as we know, Uddhava was sensitive enough. He was not a fool, as we know. He was a great devotee, great sage, and he had great capacity of imbibing new flavors of love, as he was doing now. So he was able to appreciate Nanda Maharaj's bhava. And And as he's lamenting so much, he and Jashoda are being and drowning in a pool of tears. I will change the flow of rasa. I will invoke Aishvarya to save their lives. He was thinking like that. I will take them from raga, from this intense passionate attachment they have, to Shanta Bhakti, to peace, to create some, to pacify them somehow. Shanta Bhakti is described by Rupa Goswami, no mamata, no sense of possessiveness. So the instructions of Uddhava will go in that direction now, trying to take the mamata out from Nanda and Jashoda. You know, it's impossible, but he will try his best, trying to take from them this idea out. He's my son. No, he's God. He has no son, no father, no mother. And on that basis, I arrived at Santi, reach some peace, Santa Bhakti, peace. Now, Uddhava is trying to invoke some peace. But as we know, above peace is love. So here we are speaking about a whole different story. But in his idea is, I'm trying to save Nanda Maharaj's life. But of course, nor Nanda nor Jasoda were ready to abandon their mamata, their possessiveness, which is a main quality of prem, according to Rupa Goswami, to feel Krishna in terms of my, his mind. Aham mameti, another form of aham mameti, another form of samsara. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, samsara is aham mameti. I develop a sense of I according to what I think is mine. But samsara in the spiritual world, samsara also means full essence, samsara. There's some other aham mameti there. Krishna is my son, and therefore I am his mother, her mother, and so on. His mother, and so on. And again, Uddhava will think, I will try that. I will try to speak Bhagavat Tattva, Paramatma Tattva very precisely, very powerfully. But even in spite of that, even in spite of that, the prem of Nanda and Jasoda is not affected because of that, and actually is growing and overflowing. So that prem will bear testimony for their prem in the whole world. So ultimately, Uddhava continues speaking now with the intention of glorifying Braja Prema. At this point, Uddhava is realizing this is, as our Guru Maharaj will say, way beyond the scriptural map. This is something else. This is another type of world. The scriptures say Krishna is Bhagavan, Traya Chopani Sabdischa Sankhya Yoga Sattvataya Upagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Samanya Tatmajam, says Vishwanath. This is a Paribhas Sutra of Kṛṣṇa-lila, says Vishwanath, which is a verse that says, for the Upanishads and Shastra, Krishna is God, basically. But for Jasoda, he is her son. That pivotal point, around that, all the Kṛṣṇa-lila is revolving, in Braj especially. And outside of that, pointing to that. In Braj, they see Krishna from this particular way. So Uddhava is grasping all this, and he will be able to somehow or other, maybe not to pacify them too much, but to properly convey the glories of their love to so many, including us. So the point is, Uddhava was thinking in this way, and remember, the last thing Nanda Maharaj said is maybe Krishna and Balaram, Devas, or some extraordinary beings. And Uddhava thought, I'll start to speak about Aishwarya, Gyan. So he thought, oh, Nanda said Krishna and Balaram are extraordinary beings. I will use that as an entry point to deliver, to convey my suggestion. Maybe they are devas. So Uddhava uses that moment. So he recommended Nanda, please, you should meditate in Krishna as the absolute. And he said, you and Yashoda, he starts to appreciate, to glorify them. You are the most praiseworthy person in the whole world. Uddhava realized this point here, since you have developed such a loving attitude toward Lord Narayan, the spiritual master, the sustainer of all beings. So he tries to mix his appreciation and glorification with this suggestion. Krishna is Narayana, he's Bhagavan. And of course, you can imagine, which is, now we will come coming and going of different points and suggestions between Nanda and Uddhava. So what did Nanda say at this point? Nanda said, I mean, Krishna did extraordinary things, but why? Because Narayan invested his Aishwarya, his extraordinariness in my son. But Krishna is not Narayan. Nanda Maharaj will reason, he's not Narayan. So the idea here is that Nanda is saying, yeah, Krishna killed so many terrible giant demons so easily by the mercy of Narayan, Sriman Narayan, He Narayan, and they will start to glorify Narayan in the context of all the things that Krishna could do by him. So that's the conception of in Vrindavan of going to church on Sunday and praising God. Krishna is in the center of that. Narayan, protect Krishna. Nrsimhadev, protect Kanhaiya-lal, and so on. So Uddhava will continue, of course, he won't surrender so easily in this direction, and he will say, he continues glory praising the fortune of Nanda and Jashoda, because Krishna and Balaram, they are the sources of all the worlds. They are the fathers of everything. And you feel you are his father. So Uddhava tries to appreciate. He's appreciating actually. Nanda say, oh, you are feeling that you are the father of he who is the father of all. So Nanda was crying profusely. Try to have this in mind, bear this in mind. All the things that Nanda is expressing, Nanda and Jashoda are expressing, are in the context of profuse tears and rolling in the ground and ecstatic lamentation. But at this point, when Uddhava says to Nanda, oh, you're so fortunate, you feel that you are the father of he who is the father of everyone. So Nanda stops crying for a moment and looks at Uddhava like totally maddened, and says, I heard that you are a disciple of Brihaspati. So I was expecting that you will say something intelligent to me, but I realized that you are a fool, saying that Krishna is Bhagavan, that my Lala, my child, is the father of everyone, that he's Narayan. I mean, I know who is Narayan. Narayan is Shanta Purusha, the personification of peace. And he's always stable, absorbed in Atmaram, in self-satisfaction. Krishna has not any of those qualities. He steals, he lies, he takes all the things from my pockets, Nanda Maharaj says, all the sweets I have here and there. He's afraid of Jashoda's chastisement. He's very restless. He's not Atmaram at all. So I know who God is, and I know who Krishna is. But Nanda continued with his argument. Even if it will be true that Krishna is God, Narayan, and all the stuff you are presenting, Uddhava, your words are not pacifying me at all, because what you are telling me then is that I did not only lose my child, but also I lose Bhagavan. So this is the way you are giving consolement to me, you are supporting me. This is how you try to pacify me. I mean, and also if Krishna is Bhagavan, he says, we know, it's clearly known, Bhagavan is controlled by bhakti. So the fact that Bhagavan, Krishna, left implies that our bhakti is insufficient, it's lacking. And therefore, after reaching this natural, intuitive conclusion, Siddhanta, he starts crying more and more and more, and nourishing, putting more wood in the fuel, more fuel in the fire of his separation. So again, Uddhava's thinking how to continue this. So he tries his best. Again, he's trying to console them. So he will say, well, he will take another stance here now. So Uddhava will say, having killed Kamsa, who is the enemy of all the Yadus, who was the enemy of all the Yadus in the wrestling arena and the wrestling match in Mathura, for sure Krishna will fulfill his promise to you and he will return. So now he will focus on this idea, because he realized the other point is not working that much. He's God, Narayan. So he will point, he will return. He will return. So in connection to this verse, which is verse 35, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that here the verb is in present tense, karoti. So the present tense is used to indicate, Vishwanath says, that actually Krishna is fulfilling his promise at this very moment. To say that, in fact, Vishwanath mentions in another manifestation, Krishna was actually present in Braj at that moment, what we already explained, being attentively cared for by Nanda and Jashoda, though unseen by Uddhava. So by the influence of Bhagdevi or Saraswati, the words of Uddhava were actually true. Krishna will return. Krishna is there already in one particular prakash, permanent union. And in the prakash of permanent separation, there's not so permanent. There are spurtis as well, and he will return even in that spurti, in that prakash, as we will see eventually. Also, what he's mentioning here, Uddhava invokes the name Achyuta in connection to Krishna. Achyuta means the one who is infallible. So since he's infallible, he won't fail in his promise. He promised he will return and he won't fail in that because he only lives to satisfy his devotees. So again, Uddhava, with his best intention and capacity, is trying to console Nanda and Jasoda. But at this point, he says this thing to Nanda. Krishna lives to satisfy his devotees. So Nanda looks at him again. We are in the Viraha Prakash, don't forget, in the separation windows. You say, Krishna lives to satisfy his devotees, but I'm not Krishna's devotee. I'm his father. You follow the point. I mean, nobody in Vrindavan is the devotee of Krishna. Everyone is worshipping Narayan. They are devotees of Narayana. And they love Krishna. They worship Narayan. They love Krishna. That's a different thing. So nobody feels, I'm Krishna's devotee. They feel, I'm Krishna's friend. I'm Krishna's beloved. I'm Krishna's father. So again, Uddhava is realizing more and more which are the implications, the details of this Brajabhav. So Nanda continues, I'm not his devotee, I'm his father. And you say, okay, Krishna will return. We will see Krishna, but when? When will that be? Tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? 10 days from now? I want a specific reply to that. That's my only concern, saying Nanda Maharaj. Tell us so with some consolation, so we can struggle to keep our lives, to keep our pran, our life heirs with us till that day that he will return. We don't know when he will return. He may come tomorrow and in years, so we don't know. So give us a date, so we can fix that in our agenda and we can struggle to keep our pran with us. But if Krishna is not coming at all, then you should tell us also that truthfully and let our life heirs leave us, because we cannot stand the pain of repressing them. They want to live at every single moment, and we are struggling to keep alive. You can try to imagine what really means to love Krishna. All the things are so useful for us as sadhakas, because gradually we should get closer to that on some level, to feel I cannot live without Krishna anymore. How can I live without Krishna till now? How can I continue with my superficial habits and lifestyle as if Krishna is not there, as if Krishna is totally non-existent, at least for some moments in my day? I still am an atheistic, Mayavadi, and all those things that from the mouth outside we are condemning, if you will, but still we are indulging in that. So all the things should be move our heart and increase our longing, hankering. So Nanda was at this point considering things in this way. He was thinking, well, Uddhava, I appreciate Uddhava's intention. He was to enlighten us, saying that Krishna is Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. But also, Nanda will say in this moment, in this particular wave of bhava, do we not know that already? That's an old story at the Krishna's name given ceremony. Actually, Garga Muni, Gargacharya said, your son will be equal to Narayan in qualities. So Nanda Maharaj's conclusion is, who else is there more equal to Narayan than Krishna? That's their psychology. He's as close to Narayan as possible, this our Krishna. And so from Garga Muni, Gargacharya, we learn our son is Narayan. Of course, not Narayan in every sense of the term. That's how they feel. And also we have experienced our son to be empowered by Narayan. When he killed Putana, Agasur, Bakasur, so many. When he left Govardhan again, he stopped the forest fires. When Nanda Maharaj was kidnapped by the ruler of Varuna Lok, and Varuna himself and all other devas were offering respect to Krishna, Nanda Maharaj was witnessing that. They were treating him as God. But Nanda will conclude over and over again, nevertheless, nothing will inhibit me from thinking of Krishna as my son. And of course, Jasoda is next to him, supporting very faithfully her husband. And also, this is a point Nanda Maharaj said, this is not only my experience, my wife's experience, this is Krishna's own experience. We are here speaking about pratyaksha, direct experience. Krishna's own realization in this matter is also proof that we too are his parents. So at this point, Uddhava has the eyes like Jagannath, open like this and down, Faber-glassed, speechless. So we have seen many times Nanda Maharaj say Krishna's face, how his face becomes sad if we are not pampering him, if we are not offering him the remnants of our chewed betel nut, if we are not lifting him in our laps, if we are not embracing him, kissing him, he starts crying. He wants that, he needs that. he really is our son. He feels that, and that's of course our conclusion. Krishna is really the son of Jashoda. He's not making a show of that, nor with any other relationship in the Braj. So Uddhava insists one more. He will say again, okay, you are speaking mother, father. He tries again the same argument. Krishna has no mother, no father, no body. And Nanda will say, you are denying pratyaksha praman, direct evidence, those things that are just in front of your eyes. Experience is all, is the ultimate praman. That's our conclusion. That what you can experience with in front of your face. And every moment, Nanda Maharaj is saying, I feel Krishna is my son, at every breath, at every step. And you're telling me that he has no mother, no father. Imagine that you have a son and I go to you and say, your son has no mother, no father. You feel insulted. And what to speak if your son is Krishna and if you are Nanda or Jashoda? So you can try to get the contrast of the situation. Not up saying he doesn't have mother and father, and he's saying that to Krishna's mother and father. And they are confirming with their own anubhav experience. I have full realization he's my son. So you are telling me that he's God, he has no mother, no son, no father. You're impossible. That's impossible. And again, you say he's God. I've heard this already from many personalities. Paruna, Indra. This is not new for me. You are not bringing any new news here. I'm not interested in that discussion. Krishna is God. The Devas say he's Narayan. I'm only interested in one single thing, that Krishna returns to me. And you can imagine Nanda's face at this moment, crying and looking right to the eyes of Uddhava. So again, here Uddhava is realizing the proportions of Aishwarya, Madhurya here in Braj is a totally different realm than Mathura, Dwarka, what to speak, Vaikuntha. Nanda concludes, but Uddhava is simply a child. He's very intelligent, they say so, but he cannot fathom the depths of my own son's heart. So at this point, not only Uddhava is getting to know more the Brajavasis, but he's getting to know more Krishna. He's starting to understand Krishna in a certain moment that he was not able to grasp what was going on with him. And he's starting to know himself much more, because as we will see, he's receiving some bhakti, some scars that will upgrade his potential in bhakti, even though he's nitya siddha, but in the context of that, premise can always expand. So all this experience is new for Uddhava. He's getting to know more about everything, Brajavasi himself, Krishna. So when he sees the prema of Nanda and Jashoda, of course, Uddhava is feeling so happy and so grateful by witnessing that. And he's concluding, oh, I have witnessed the highest degree of love now. And we know, not yet, just wait for seeing the gopis and Sri Radha in particular. This is just gradually starting to enter into the Braj. Of course, this is the topmost glory of Vatsalya Bhav, but we know there's much more to be said. So again, Uddhava starts to express his gratitude to Nanda and Jashoda, starts to praise them, because again, he repeats the point, for having so much love for Narayana. And again, Nanda has something to say. If we were having love for Narayan, Krishna wouldn't have left, basically. If he's Narayan again, why he left? Narayan stays where love is there. So Uddhava says, Krishna is Narayan, you love him, you love Narayan. If you love Krishna, Krishna is Narayan, you love Narayan. He tries to make this formula, to make them accept this formula. And Nanda will reply again, this is not new. Indra said that after the lifting of Govardhan Hill. Brahma said that after Brahma Mohan-lila. Varuna, so many glorify my Krishna as the absolute, Brahman, Padmanabha, Bhagavan. We have heard those things so many times. Try to fathom the situation. Try to put yourself for a minute in that situation. Hearing that your son is God from so many important, sober personalities, but it doesn't change the fact of what you feel for him. So that's what Nanda is saying here. We have heard this so many times, but this is not affecting us an inch. My son is my son. Clear, Uddhava? So that's Nanda's Siddhanta. My son is my son, and do not try to establish a borderline between me and my son. That won't happen, and that won't work. And if you say he's Narayan, as one person, a blind person can see by the grace of Guru, a person who cannot walk will cross mountains, A person who cannot speak will recite poetry by the grace of Guru. Similarly, my Krishna was empowered by Narayan to do so many extraordinary things because he's an ordinary boy. If you take out the empowerment by Narayan, he's our village Lala, our kid, no more than that. And the rest is Narayan. Hey, Narayan. So the only part that Nanda Maharaj is accepting from the discourse of Uddhava is Krishna will return. That's the only thing he has ears for. All the other things he doesn't care. It enters one ear, goes out the other one. He has no taste for this flow of Brahma Gyan, Paramatma Gyan, Bhagavad Tattva at all. Only he's concerned about when Krishna will return. So whenever Uddhava says he will come, he only will hear that part and he will reply, tell us when. Tell us when. When that day will be mine. So Uddhava keeps insisting. Again, he not because he's stubborn, because he wants to render proper seva to all, and he's figuring that out, how to do that in the best possible way. He's learning on the spot, if you will, how to do that. So he continues saying, give me some few minutes here with your permission, telling Nanda, okay, you love Krishna, that's okay. It's not wrong, but try to change the mood. Do not love him as your son. Love him as Narayan. But Nanda at this point is disturbed, extremely disturbed with this. So he will repeat this point. Just tell me if Krishna will come tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or when. Or if he will not come. But be clear about that specific fact. I don't care about anything else. I'm not interested if Krishna is Brahman or not. I'm not interested in his Bhagavan or not. I'm only exclusively one-pointedly interested in when Krishna will come. And I won't lose any more of my time in this useless discussion. So at this point, Uddhava again is answerless. He doesn't know what to say, what to tell, how to continue. And after this, Nanda and Yashoda start to cry, the two of them, inconsolably. But in their minds, in their own inner beings, they are witnessing all these leelas of Krishna. So again, externally it seems pathetic, it seems undesirable, but internally, highest level of love and absorption. Bahya Bisa Jalahoy, Bitare Anandamai Krishna Premerat Bhut Charit. On the externals, separation seems like poison. Internally, it tastes like nectar. So it's paradoxical, for sure. It's mysterious. We have to go through some apparent reality to find that there is something else going on. So all this have to do with love. Sometimes even Acharya have said in that separation, in that so-called suffering, highest type of love is there. I'm not describing how Mahaprabhu was experiencing that in the Gambhira, by ramming his face into the walls, and you can hear that and you feel scared. You say, how that can be happy? So yeah, there is some high pleasure in that type of suffering. Spiritually speaking, if there is love, union, separation, suffering, happiness is basically the same thing. If it was a great mystery, a great secret of love, which is locked with key in the hearts of the great personalities like Nanda and Yashoda, like the Mahabhagavats. Dharmata tam nihitanguhayam mahajano yena gatasa panta, says the Mahabharata. The secret of Dharma, which is Prema Dharma, which is Prema, is hidden into the cave-like hearts of the great personalities. So the process is to follow the footsteps of the Mahajans, to enter into their hearts and to find the treasure there. This is a very unique idea of transcendence. Generally, we in Western tradition have a very different conception of heaven, or what's waiting for us there. We have the idea of heaven, sky, and we will play in the, how do you say, the harp, and we will singing hallelujah for eternity, which is similar, basically shanti, peace, no suffering, stillness. But if you compare the achievement of the Brajavasis, eternal achievement, the Premadara, you can speak in terms of a rainbow in such a heaven, a mixture of different colors and nuance, variations of transcendental emotions. So that's what Uddhava is witnessing here, the rainbow in the sky of transcendence. So In this way, the whole night was passing. This entire night was passed in discussion between Nanda and Yashoda and Uddhav. That is the first night of Uddhav in Braj. He was not able to sleep at all. He was just engaged in Lila Katha, Hari Katha with the residents of Braj. That's how we should spend our time while visiting the Dham. But the point is that Uddhav was not able to pacify Nanda nor Yashoda nor get them to accept his advice. So he was about to leave. The next day was beginning. So before leaving, Uddhav, in an agitated state, he basically said to them, well, I desire to console you, but your affection is really far beyond me. But that affection you have for your son, not for God, that will accomplish all that you desire. So in consoling you, Jiva Goswami mentions, paraphrasing Uddhav, my audacity has caused you great disturbance, so forgive me. And so Uddhav is crying at this point, begging forgiveness and trying to do his best, but at the same time being overwhelmed, experiencing such a mixture of emotions here. And in this way, he's leaving Nandishwar. He's leaving the house, the palace of Nanda Maharaj in the morning, in the very early morning. And when he goes out of the Nandishwar, he again sees a new stage, a new scenario. He will see again Sambhog Prakash, the portal where all the Braj is in union with Krishna. What he saw right when he arrived to Braj, interestingly. So this is mentioned in the 46th verse of this chapter, which says that as the ladies of Braj were loudly singing the glories of lotus-eyed Krishna, their songs blended with the sound of their morning churning, and that sound ascended to the sky and dissipated all inauspiciousness in every direction. So he had this darshan. All the ladies of Braj, they are dressing nicely with colorful clothing and ornaments and smearing kumkum on themselves, singing sweetly. All those things do not occur in the state of separation and lamentation. So Uddhav was seeing clearly at the end of this night, Uddhav was seeing the manifestation of Braj with Krishna present there one more time, just as he has seen that at the end of the previous day when he arrived to Braj. So again, you can imagine what's going on. We cannot imagine, but have an idea in the hearts of someone like Uddhav at this moment. So when the sun had risen, Brahma Muhurta, a little bit after, it is said that the people of Braj woke up this next day, the gopis in particular, and now they noticed the golden chariot that was in front of Nanda Maharaj's doorway. So they started to inquire, who does this chariot belong to? So again, now comes the manifestation of Braj and separation from Krishna one more time. So in this way, this different prakash were switching in the eyes of Buddha. So the gopis were wondering, who is the owner of this chariot? And when they see a chariot, immediately the immediate impression comes to them is Akrura, because that was the most traumatic and recent chariot-like experience they had. A chariot came to take Krishna away from Braj. So immediately they were thinking, has Akrura come back? But Kamsa has been killed, so what's the reason for his coming? Maybe, yeah, he came back, but for what? Maybe, and they poetically express in the last verses of the Bhagavatam in this chapter, maybe he came to use our flesh to offer funeral oblations for his deceased master who was so satisfied with his service. So in this way, the gopis were inquiring amongst themselves, who was the one coming in this chariot? And they were thinking, well, now Krishna is a big man, a city man. He received Diksha Upanayana. Now he's Kshatriya. Now he's a Yadu. So instead of coming personally, even if some were to consider Uddhav came, because at some point some gopis received that message. Uddhav came as a messenger for Krishna. So some of the gopis were thinking in these terms. He's not coming personally. He's very important now. So he's sending a messenger. But Uddhav himself was thinking, I should have entered Braj barefoot without any chariot whatsoever, as a pilgrim. This is such a high place, who I am in comparison to the dust here, as we will see. So again, the gopis were thinking, yeah, maybe they are performing the last oblations for Kamsa's death, and Uddhav, in the case it's not Akrura. It's the case some gopis may think it's Uddhav. Okay, Uddhav came to pick the last pieces of our broken hearts. The gopis were thinking this term, to throw them into the fire. Swaha, swaha. So in this moment, when the gopis were speaking in this way, wondering who may have come and which were the intention behind that, Uddhav appeared on the scene in the very early morning after finishing his early morning duties. So what happened in the meeting of Uddhav and the gopis, that we will see starting from next class. We will see the very first verses of chapter 47, and after that, Bhramara-gītā will begin. So that's all for today. And of course, if you have any questions, for those who have Facebook, you are invited to present your questions in the Tattva Vivek forum. But for those who do not have, I'm now giving the option to unmute yourself via Facebook if you would like to present any question, any comment you may like to share today. And also I will check if there's any other in the Facebook streaming as well. So are there any inquiries, any commentaries? Any comment you may like to share today. And also I will check if there's any other in the Facebook streaming as well. So are there any? I was looking in the Facebook, if there were commentaries and my whole home voice activated there. So Lalita Saki says, so much should be said, but I'm speechless after this class. Okay, you're following Uddhava's footsteps. It's okay. There's a moment to. So you say you were speechless after this class, like Uddhav. There's a moment for being speechless. There's a moment of speaking and feeling there's not enough to be said about that, and we can engage our speaking faculties, but sometimes it's also healthy to remain speechless. So thank you for helping me, joining you in having a glimpse into these mysteries, as Lalita Saki saying. This is a group task, so I'm not alone in here. So all of you are sharing input in that direction. So thank you very much. And if there are no further commentaries or questions, I have full confidence of your ruminating along the week of these topics, and we will meet each other next Monday. And as usual, we will finish our meeting by offering our pranam to specifically the Brajavasis, and more specifically the Brajagopis, and of course more specifically to Sri Radha, who will be the main character in this Bhramara Gītā series, by invoking a pranam verse which we will be studying at the closing of this series, which will be invoked by Uddhav himself right before leaving Braj, the very last verse of praise that he will pronounce. We will invoke this verse at the end of all this meeting. It's a very nice, famous verse, in which Uddhav says to the gopis, I offer my pranam perpetually unto the foot dust of the lotus feet of the woman of the village of Nanda Maharaj, whose kirtan is so deep, so powerful, whose katha is so touching that it purifies the three worlds. So here we are in one section of one of those three worlds, praying for being touched, sprinkled by an atom of that kirtan, and in this way purify ourselves and properly engage into this exchange of Shravan, Kirtan, Harikatha. So the mantra say, Bande Nanda Brajastrinam Padarenu Navikshna Saja Samharikatodgitam Punati Bhuvanatri. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Bhramara-gita ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bo, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.